We identify what's the best way to reach Latino youth, and it has been through media, multimedia platforms, but really through educational programs. So, for example, we recently did a project called Crash Parties, which you get people come in and are embedded reporters to cover the Republican and Democratic convention. Why is that important? Because all of a sudden, these young people are going to go cover the election from their perspective. And how does it actually function? How does it work? And again, there's a lot of education that's missing. Let me give you a little bit about the profile of the Latino youth voter. The Latino youth voter is, for the most part, roughly around 24, 25 years old. The median age of the Latino community as a whole is 25 years old compared to the average age of the rest of the United States, which is 35. There are 18 million Latino voters in this country. Of those 18 million eligible Latino voters, 50% of them are exactly under the age of 40. You have roughly 50,000 Latino voters turning 18 every single month. And the largest influx of Latinos voting age are no longer immigrants, but they're the children of the immigrants that came during the 1960s and in the year 2000. So what we're finding is, how do you engage them? And I like the fact that Sam brought up that back in 2006, when the legislation had passed already in December of 2005, the legislation was already pending for this very harsh anti-immigration legislation, basically saying that even if you, for example, had to go to an emergency room and you were undocumented, you couldn't receive basic services. And Good Samaritan law is basically saying that, and if you actually help that person, you too could be fined. I mean, very egregious. And no one really did anything about it. I mean, people inside the Beltway definitely were negotiating and creating, but there was no really sense of, how hard this was going to move forward. So what happened was that basically in the March of 2006, folks all of a sudden started, and I'll never forget this, I was about to give a speech at Temple University, and I turn on the TV, and all of a sudden CNN is literally pulling their hair out saying, oh my God, there's brown people in the streets. And what are they doing? And you focus a little closer and you realize that it's young people in the streets, and what are they doing? And it was a peaceful march, but what were they doing? They were walking out. How did they organize? Via text message and MySpace. And this you have to keep in mind, this is before parents found out about MySpace. So that's what makes it powerful, is that and it culminated in literally the largest civil rights rallies in our history. 2 million people marching. Now, the reason that's significant is that while you had nearly 2 million people marching, and the largest concentration of those were in California, Texas, Florida, New York, and Chicago. It translated in the polls in the sense that there was a blip, but we expected huge people to come out to the polls because, again, 2 million people marched. Interestingly enough, in the 5 states that I just mentioned, you only saw a blip literally in California and Illinois. So the question was, what happened in Chicago? What happened in New York, Florida, and Texas, where we didn't see a bump as we had expected? And part of it was we don't know, because there wasn't enough research. Obviously, immigration was something that was important to the community, but it wasn't enough to get them to the polls. And that's when you starting to find that there's a lot of